All right. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to my first video in about 7 or 8 years. My name is Voting End, and it has been a long time since I've uploaded really anything on this channel. I used to make videos all the time when I was a freshman in college, and even a little bit when I was in high school. But I wanted to make a quick video. As most of you probably know, this is a pretty Call of Duty focused YouTube channel, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 is coming out this year. And it is a game that I am very, very excited for. Just because I haven't uploaded anything Call of Duty wise doesn't mean I haven't played every single game Call of Duty wise that has come out since that time. But today I wanted to go over a sort of DMZ wish list. Last time we saw DMZ was in Modern Warfare 2 2022, and I really enjoyed that game. I still actually really enjoy it. As you can see in the background, I have some footage that I took the other day of myself going through the Koshkai complex. DMZ is still an active game in Modern Warfare 2, and there's still actually quite a large player base in that game. And while it is fun to go in, I usually play solo, so I like to go into the Koshkai complex because there's nobody there, and it's really just me fighting a bunch of bots, but also it's cool. I love this area. I get to solve puzzles, and I thought this addition to the game was really cool. But the real reason why I'm making this video is I wanted to go over a couple of things that I would really like to see in the full version of DMZ. If you didn't know, in this game, Modern Warfare 2022, DMZ was always labeled as DMZ Beta. They never actually released this full game, even though, you know, they gave it a year's worth of content and support. It was never really classified anything outside of a beta. So I don't think this new mode is going to be, you know, called DMZ 2.0 or anything. I think it's just going to be called DMZ. And there has been a lot of stuff coming out recently about what DMZ is going to be for Modern Warfare 4. And even today I was looking through Instagram and I saw a couple of posts, and some of the items that they actually discussed in there were items that I've written down on my DMZ wish list, as it were. So I'd like to just kind of jump into things I would like to see for DMZ this time around. Starting off with maps. We do know the name of the big map that's going to be around for DMZ, and it is called Hajin. It is based on a real city called Tumen, and Tumen is a city that borders North Korea, China, and Russia. So I feel like as far as the story goes, and as far as unique POIs, there's going to be a lot. But in addition to this larger map of Hajin, I would really like to see a couple of smaller maps. In DMZ Beta, there were technically three smaller maps. You had Ashika Island, and you had Vondel. Now, whether or not they're going to fully bring back either of those maps, I'm not 100% sure. If they were going to bring back one of them, I would probably say it's going to be Vondel. However, in bringing back these maps, you have to ask yourself a question: does it actually align with the story? And I think that, you know, there's some pretty smart writers at Infinity Ward, and I think if they wanted to bring back these maps, they could totally integrate them with the actual story. What I'd like to see in terms of the maps here is those smaller maps, like take your Vondel, take your Ashika Island, I think those really should be PvP focused, so player versus player focused. And the larger map, I would like to see more mission focused. And apparently I was reading something today that there's going to be 3 different ways to infill on these DMZ maps. One is going to be just kind of a free play kind of mode where, you know, there's no real mission you're following. You're just going in, you're doing whatever the hell you want. And then the other 2 are PvP focused, and then there are mission focused infills with dedicated cinematics, things like that. I think that's really cool. Honestly, I think that's great. I think I'm going to be playing a lot of that mission focused stuff because I am a guy that really does enjoy the story. And speaking of story, and the map you can actually see in the background here that I'm playing on is the Koshkai complex. The Koshkai complex is a secret underground facility that exists under Al Mazrah, and it was introduced in Season 5, I believe, Season 4, Season 5 of Modern Warfare 2's life cycle. And frankly, I wish I had played this map more. I really did enjoy it, and as you can see, there's a full, you know, Call of Duty title out right now with Black Ops 7, and I'm still spending an hour or two some nights going back into the Koshkai complex here in DMZ Beta and having a lot of fun. I think that this was a really cool addition because it really focused on the kind of puzzle solving or just kind of, yeah, puzzle solving elements of what an extraction shooter could be. And I really like that. I'd like to see a second kind of pseudo Kashkai complex that exists on Hodgen. And I think there's a lot of different ways they could do this with the, unique ways you actually enter the complex. With the 4 different entrances around Al Mazrah, I think that having different entrances around Hodgen could be something really, really cool. And I think as far as the story goes, they could tie it in really, really well. Maybe the Kashkai complex has some kind of sister location. Where, there are all sorts of nefarious things going on underground of Hodgen. And, as an elite operator, your goal is to go in there and, see what's going on. Secondly, I'd like to talk about another one of the smaller maps that we got with DMZ Beta, and that is Building 21. Building 21 was it was a research complex that was taken over by Shadow Company as far as the story goes. Rogue agents of Shadow Company, you had Velikan in there and Wheelson, and they were pretty much running the place as DMZ bosses. And I think that a really cool kind of adjacent Building 21 could be some kind of data center. Data centers are huge and exist in the real world, and I think some kind of North Korean data center could be cool as like one of those extra playable maps like Building 21 was. And I think that kind of aligns with the story and could be a really cool addition. And if it's not like a data center, it could be like the Supreme Leader's laboratory, as a lot of this game is going to be set in Korea, both South and North Korea. There is a Supreme Leader of North Korea. I'm not going to give him any extra shout out on this by mentioning his name, but if you've read the news ever, you probably know who this guy is. But in this game, they've created some fictitious new Supreme Leader of North Korea. This could be like his secret laboratory that they could do as a Building 21 adjacent style map. Moving right along, one of the big things about DMZ was there were different factions, and the OG factions that we had in DMZ Beta were the Black Mouse, which was run by essentially Kate Laswell. You had the White Lotus, the Phalanx, the Crown, and Shadow Company. Now, if there were 2 factions out of the original ones that were to return, I would say it's honestly Black Mouse and Shadow Company, because both of those factions, they have viable characters like Philip Graves, who's in charge of Shadow Company, and he is confirmed to be coming back for this game, as well as Kate Laswell, who ran Black Mouse, and I think those could be 2 factions that we could totally see again. But I also thought about some new factions I would like to see. The first of which being the Hunter Killers, or the South Korean Commandos. There was already a pre-order skin bonus for a operator named Hunter Killer, and but it also, in his bio said like, hey, they're part of a unit called the Hunter Killers. So I think because this game does take place in Korea, yeah, we can totally have a South Korean commando faction called the Hunter Killers. Next, and I think this one ties in really well with the story, we have the Spetsnaz. We haven't really seen a lot of Spetsnaz-focused stuff, which are like Russian special forces, since Modern Warfare 2019. And if you haven't heard a lot about the story of this game, this is not going to be a Vladimir Makarov-focused game. He's an ultra-nationalist. He was the bad guy of Modern Warfare 3. And he's going to die very, very early in the Modern Warfare 4 campaign. So with the fall of Makarov, Russia's kind of in chaos, and I think this could be a really cool opportunity for the Spetsnaz faction or special forces group to kind of rise up, and they get to do their own, they have their own sets of missions. So if you want to work for them, absolutely, go ahead. I think that could be really cool. I also think it could provide a really unique tie-in from Modern Warfare 3 in the fact that we saw Yuri, who was a character in the original Modern Warfare 3. You could argue he was the main character in the original Modern Warfare 3, but he is a Russian commander, so I think that integrating him could be something very, very cool. And, he could kind of be like, how Kate Laswell is in charge of Black Mouse or Philip Graves is in charge of Shadow Company. Yuri could be the one in charge of this Russian faction. Another faction I'd like to see is 141. If you don't know much about what's going on or what's been kind of talked about already by some Infinity Ward devs, Ghost is going to play a really, really big role in DMZ from what we've been but what we've been told so far. And I think that having a 141 faction honestly makes a lot of sense, specifically because Ghost is going to be very instrumental for the story going forward. And lastly, kind of another callback to Modern Warfare 2019, the Chimera. Chimera was this group of kind of like freelance soldiers. You had guys like Yegor, who were Russian, or other operators like Sid, who were American. As well as Nikolai and Farah, they were all Chimera operators. So seeing that faction could be kind of cool. It's a faction that kind of pledges allegiance to nobody, really, so that could be kind of like a cool rogue faction to see and continue to implement characters like Nikolai, who have been pretty crucial in the Modern Warfare story thus far. So next I'd like to talk about field upgrades. And field upgrades are something that we have seen in every Call of Duty since Modern Warfare 2019. They've just become a part of the flow and the actual play of the game. And I'd like to talk about some new field upgrades I'd like to see, because I feel like we're going to get, our standard armor box and munitions box, all sorts of that, but some new ones that maybe we haven't seen that could play a big role in DMZ. First, I'd like to see a blowtorch or some kind of metal cutting device, whether it is a blowtorch or those like... I don't want to call them, welding sticks, but they're like cutting flares. Or some kind of small breaching charge that can get you into harder to reach places, specifically ones that are restricted by metal. Not to go too Rainbow Six Siege here and talk about using breaching charges like thermite, but seeing a blowtorch could be a really cool idea to kind of change gameplay. You can create new entrances, exits, things like that. If you're stuck in a tough situation, yeah, maybe a blowtorch is exactly what you need to cut yourself a little hole and get out. Now, I do understand that could be a little too game-breaking for a game like this, or it just doesn't actually make sense with the flow, whereas with Siege, that is a pretty heavily destructible game. But something cool to think about. Next, I'd like to talk about the tactical ladder. Tactical ladder was, from what was been rumored, was supposed to be a field upgrade in Modern Warfare 2019, and we never actually got to see that, except for one mission. I think it was called Clean House. You did use a tactical ladder to access the second story of a house from the ground level. So seeing a tactical ladder like that could be really cool. It just provides advanced gameplay, things like that, and just new areas of motion to explore. And going along with that kind of tactical ladder, some kind of rappelling hook. We see them all over the map to get up to high places. You go up to the rope, you click in your climber or repeller, and it takes you up. I think some kind of like small cannon that can shoot up a rappelling hook. It latches onto something, and you're able to scale the side of, like, say a valley or a small hill that you weren't able to get up before using that. That tool could be kind of a cool tactical advantage to have. Next, I want to talk about something that already exists in DMZ, but could be, now like a player-operated field upgrade. Maybe it could be a score streak, but tripwires. You'll see in this gameplay a little later, I diffuse a lot of tripwires. I think setting up tripwires all around DMZ, if you're trying to, keep your tracks not necessarily covered, but you want to slow enemies down that might be chasing you through tight quarters, tripwires or some kind of explosive traps could be really, really cool to see, and just adds that new element to the gameplay. A few more field upgrades here. The radiation shot, it kind of already exists in this version of DMZ with the radiation blockers, but some kind of field upgrade that you can like juice yourself with, giving you temporary protection from radiation. Let's say you don't have a gas mask, or your gas mask is on its last leg. That could be a cool element, as well as spike strips. If you've played DMZ or Warzone, you know that vehicle play is huge. So some kind of anti-vehicle field upgrade like spike strips could be really, really cool to see, to maybe not fully destroy a vehicle, but to really slow it down. I think that could be a cool element of gameplay. If you're being chased, you're in the back of a pickup truck, maybe you can deploy a spike strip or some kind of caltrop and slow down the vehicles chasing you if you don't have, say, like a launcher or an LMG with an enormously large magazine to try and stop enemies that are chasing you, or if you're trying to get the jump on somebody. Could be a really cool tool. Really quickly, I wanted to touch on the backpack system. I don't really have a ton of new unique ideas for this, because I did like the backpack system from this game, with your regular backpacks, medium, large, scavenger, and secure backpacks. I thought those were really cool. Maybe with that third weapon slot, maybe that's some kind of advantage you only get when you are running, like, say, a large backpack, because having that third weapon kind of feels a little bit odd for a Call of Duty game where, you're only really known for having two weapons, not including zombies with, mule kick. That's a whole different gameplay style. But I do think a cool like addition you could have for certain backpacks is maybe like dedicated areas for the key slots. You're able to bring in or like scavenge keys across the map. If your backpack had like a dedicated slot for, say, like, I don't know, 3 to 4 keys, that could be really cool. So you still have a lot of room in your backpack for other items. So next I want to talk about bosses, and as you can see here in the video, I will be fighting 2 bosses in the Koshkai complex, the Rhino and the Sniper. I think bosses in DMZ were a super cool way to keep gameplay active, and you got special rewards for defeating bosses time and time again. I would like to see some new bosses, and it's already been rumored that Mace, an operator from Modern Warfare, I believe it was 2019 was his first showcase as an operator. Mace is already rumored to be one of the bosses in DMZ. I'm not sure what he's going to do. That idea is already kind of thought out, obviously, by the folks at Infinity Ward, but I thought up some new bosses I would like to see, and I think relate to the actual map and the real-world elements that you fight a lot inside of DMZ. The first is some kind of drone operator. You have a drone operator stashed in kind of like a high position. You approach them, and they have both recon drones, tactical drones, maybe even bomb drones that will bombard you, try and attack you. Drone warfare is a really real thing in actual modern warfare, in real life, not just the game. So having some kind of drone operator boss that doesn't really respond well to electricity, or like some kind of like DDoS system, could be really cool. There were always different ways to defeat bosses, and that could be a cool way to implement some real world warfare stuff into this game. The next boss I would like to talk about is some kind of armored boat. If you played DMZ, you might know that there was the boss chopper, a heavily armored Russian helicopter that was flying around trying to shoot you, or in Vondel there was the bullfrog. He drove like a TAV vehicle and was able to transit between water as well as land. I think a water-based one, solely water-based, would be really cool to have some kind of like armored boat, or like armored kind of like aquatic outpost. I think a really cool code name for them could be like, the announcer comes over, your overlord comes over and is like, hey, be aware that there's a bounty in your area, codenamed Ahab, a famous captain, or like codenamed Blackbeard is in your area. Please, dispose of them and collect a bounty, things like that. And obviously with all the bosses, there was always really high tier loot you got from defeating them. So some kind of armored boat, I think, could be a really cool element. The next boss I would like to talk about is this boss idea I thought up called the Warden. And in this map of Hajin, there's obviously going to be a lot of North Korean themes and some kind of underground prison. Maybe it ties into the new pseudo-adjacent Koshkai complex. Maybe there's an area underneath the map where there's an underground prison. It's all dark. It's almost like an NVG specific fight. You need nods or some kind of night vision or a flashlight to kind of see down there. And the boss down there is the prison warden. He's down there wreaking havoc, and your goal is to defeat him. So I think that could be really cool. Maybe this boss throws flashbangs a lot, so it kind of overwhelms your night vision goggle system, and it's really hard to see. I think that could be a kind of a cool element of gameplay that we haven't really seen appear, like NVG kind of boss fight. Could be really, really awesome. So that's where the Warden comes in. The next boss I thought up was a boss called the Excavator, or the Prospector. Some kind of resource miner that's running some kind of dig operation. They're digging for rare earth minerals or different raw materials, like we saw in Koshkai Complex. There were all the different acids, the sulfuric acid, acetic acid. You had your chlorine, your formaldehyde. Things like that. So if you defeat this boss, he could be heavily armored, have a security detail with him. You get access to the stuff that this excavator prospector was mining up, and it could be really good for bartering or the kind of crafting system that they implemented with this game. The final boss I thought of was a boss that was codenamed the Black Snake. Black Snake is a slang term for a coal train, and while trains don't run on coal anymore, there is a long armored train that actually does exist in North Korea. I saw a really cool news piece, little documentary style thing about the supreme leader of North Korea's special armored train, because they don't have a lot of planes there, like how the U.S. has Air Force One, but there is an armored train that does exist that transports the supreme leader between Russia and China. So maybe at a certain timestamp in the map, the announcer comes through and says hey, be aware, the armored train Black Snake is moving through the map, and you have two options: either derail the train with enough explosives or launchers, or things like that, or get creative, get on board the train, and eliminate the conductor that will fully stop the train, and you get to access all the cool loot that is in there. A little bit about vehicles. I don't have a lot of ideas cooked up for vehicles. I'd like to see the AH-6 Little Bird return. That's a vehicle that's been in a couple of Call of Duties. I think it's a cool, fast, little moving helicopter. I'd love to see that return. But specifically when it comes to vehicles, I know we just talked about it, but the train that it just has loot on it, or like a special weapons safe. I'd like to see the train return. Seems like it's become a pretty big staple in most Warzone or DMZ culture. The last several Warzone maps have all had a train that has special loot on them, rolls through the map. Really cool. I'd like to see that come back. And sticking with the topic of trains, if you remember from Modern Warfare 2019, there was a fast travel system at the Season 6 integration, Season 5 or 6 integration. It was like an underground subway train that could take you from different parts of the map. I'd really like to see that return, and I understand that that might be a little too overpowered for an extraction shooter style game, so I think that maybe this kind of fast travel system is locked behind some sort of like key wall or like card key wall where you have to actually find like a ticket or some kind of like key card that grants you access to the underground subway system, but you only get to use the train to fast travel to a location once. So you go in, punch your key card, and then you get to select as a team like, hey, we want the underground subway to fast travel us to this location, and after that, you want to use it again, you're going to need to find another key card. So that could be a cool way to keep things balanced, while it's not just people rotating around the map, just running away, and it's impossible to find anybody. Next, I'd like to talk about extractables. In this game, you can actually see that I did pick up a specialized weapons case, and if you extract with said weapons case, it's pretty cool. You get an awesome reward, you get cool stuff. I think weapons cases could totally make a return. Very cool. I love that. Or maybe like if you're using a specific operator skin. I run like Nikto. He's one of my favorite operators. Maybe you extract a special weapons case and it's just unique. You get a unique skin for whatever operator you extracted it with. Kind of think how like the end game missions in Black Ops 7 kind of run like that. If you complete a certain world event or a guild strike, you get it with that operator. You get a special skin for that operator. I'd like to see the notes systems come back. Notes were really cool. I thought that they just continued the story, so great work there, and I'd really love to see more of that. Notes were fun. Maybe you have like a designated slot in your backpack for notes, so it's not taking up too much of your space. Otherwise, you can only pull out a couple notes, a couple pieces of gear at a time. But that is what makes an extraction shooter harder. I'd like to talk a little bit about cool missions I think that could be in the game. Evidence collection is the name of a mission that already exists in Endgame, but I think for this it could be a little bit different. I think similar to how the radiation contract worked in this game, where you had to find Geiger counters and then go measure radiation and find the radioactive materials. You pick up this contract, it's called evidence collection, you go find a special camera, and then you're tasked with taking certain pictures of like, hey, we need you to take a picture of certain biohazards that we might have found, and we need like actual photo identification of them, or like, hey, we need you to eliminate this like certain player, boss. Take a picture so we can confirm the kill, and then you take that specialized camera that has like the set pictures in it, take it back to some kind of comms tower, relay tower, or data center, upload the pictures, boom, you get your reward. Hostage was another contract that was in this game. I'd like to see it kind of reimagined. I think you could do like Hostage in a really cool way where like, hey, there's a North Korean defector that needs to get out of Hojin now. You're tasked with extracting that North Korean defector and getting him out of North Korea. So another cool contract that could really tie into the story, as well as some real-world applications. This kind of stuff really does exist, people trying to escape North Korea. Lastly, I'd like to see a contract maybe called like supply line disruption. Supply lines are a real thing that exist in war zones, and I think that this could be like a real-time kind of like map-altering mission where like, hey, we need you to disrupt a supply line of weapons and goods coming into the city of Hajin. You're tasked with, collecting enough like plastic explosives or kind of charges like that. Strap them to an actual bridge in the map. Blow that bridge. That bridge is no longer usable. So not only is it, cutting off supply lines for, the AI enemy, but it's also like could be like a real world operation, and it does shift how the map plays because now you can no longer take vehicles over said bridge. I think that could be really cool. And then lastly on that, it doesn't have to just be like bridges or buildings. It could be like, hey, there's a solar farm, or like, hey, there's some kind of like wind farm we need you to like take down, or some kind of fuel depot that needs to be destroyed to cut off the enemy's supply lines. And that changes how the map plays as well, because there are different, POIs that maybe have craters in them or holes, or they don't fully exist anymore. That could be a little too odd for an extraction shooter game where that's not the main focus, but a cool mission idea nonetheless. Lastly, I'd like to talk about exfils. Exfils were really cool, but there were only 2 real ways to exfil out of the map. Calling in Dino 4, the cargo helicopter that would pick you up, or if you were in the Koshkai complex or Building 21, it was waiting for an elevator. Now, both were cool, but I'd like to see some different styles of exfils, and there was actually a post released today by Infinity Ward that showed a new exfil, and it was this idea that I really, really liked and was kind of like happy to pitch for the first time. But the skyhook, think how you used to extract from Urzikstan in Modern Warfare 3, in that version of Warzone. You win the game, and the skyhook would come pick you up, so you strap in and get yanked up into the air. I think that could be really cool. I also think that you could have like smugglers' tunnels, and maybe that's how you get out the North Korean hostage that you've been tasked with extracting from the city of Hajin, because like I said, getting people out of North Korea is a real thing. So, and when you would extract a hostage in DMZ beta, you got to the choice of like, hey, put the hostage on the helicopter. You can come too if you want. So maybe it's like, hey, get them to this smugglers' tunnel. If you want to leave, take the smugglers tunnel with them. Now's your chance to get out. I think that could be really cool. Kind of similar to how there were a couple different ways you could extract an Arc Raiders. I haven't played a ton of that game, but I have seen a fair amount of footage, and there seems to be lots of different ways that you can exfil out of there. So could be a cool way to add dynamic exfil to the game and get out in different ways. Just cool cinematics, things like that. I'm a sucker for stuff like that. But no disrespect towards Dino 4 and the elevators, but I'd like to see some more dynamic exfils. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts and ideas that I have. I'm very excited for the next implementation of DMZ. So please tell me below if you like any of the ideas or you have some of your own. Thanks, you guys.